My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, today we celebrate the feast of one of your friends, one of your apostles, one of the first that you called, one of the fishermen that you saw mending nets with their father and called to yourself to follow you. James, as he's sometimes called, James the Greater, James the son of Zebedee, James the brother of St. John, St. James the patron of Spain, who went to the ends of the earth to proclaim your good news, your message, your death and your resurrection. James, who was the bishop of Jerusalem and who was the first of the apostles to be martyred. And in today's gospel, we hear a conversation that James and his brother John had with you, Jesus, a conversation that's not entirely flattering, where, well, in this gospel, the mother of James and John asks you that her son sits at your right hand and at your left. It is clear from the conversation and also from similar gospel passages that they are also asking you this question, Jesus. And in fact, you begin to interact and converse with them, asking them if they are able to drink the chalice that you would have to drink. I suppose what is comforting about this conversation, Jesus, is that even your closest disciples, even after years of following you, still had sometimes imperfect ideas or sometimes even wrong ideas of what it meant to follow you, even of what your kingdom meant. It seems that James and his brother and his mother are still thinking about your kingdom in earthly terms, a kingdom where there is a hierarchy based on power and position and privilege. And although there are positions and there is a hierarchy in your kingdom, in your church, but that is not the basis of the hierarchy in the church, that the hierarchy in the church is based more on service and on suffering. And this is what you explain to them, Jesus. This is what you invite them into. And we are comforted by the situation because it helps us realize that in following you, we too often have wrong ideas of what it means to be your disciples. Often we can, even without realizing it, position our following you in terms of what we get out of it, what we think we have merited or have earned or will be given or even will be blessed because we are your followers. But you say to James and to us, firstly, can you drink the chalice that I will drink? Now, St. James and St. John have a beautiful willingness here. They both say, we can, in Latin, that possumus. We are able, Lord Jesus. We are able to, whatever you ask, whatever you say, we're able and willing to do it. Now, we know that without God's grace, they are unable. We are unable to drink the chalice that Jesus drank. But what is admirable here is their willingness. So they, like us, are imperfect in their understanding of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, but willing to follow and willing to learn, willing to be corrected. Because following Jesus, far from being about what we can get out of it, what we can gain, is about what we are called to give. That if we are called to drink the chalice that Christ has drank, that is his suffering and his passion, we are called to give up everything, to be willing to be abandoned, to suffer seriously, to lose everything, and to even lose our lives for Christ and for the gospel. We see also in the reaction of the other disciples who are indignant at these two for asking such an impertinent question, that perhaps they were thinking similar things, that perhaps they too had goals, ambitions within, and hopes, even earthly hopes, in what it meant for them to be the closest disciples of Jesus. But Jesus points out that though, yes, they are leaders with authority, that this is not for their gain, but will be for their loss. That this is not for themselves, but for others. That this is not about power and dominance, but about service and sacrifice. Jesus, you then make yourself the point of reference, and you say, just as the Son of Man, who came not to be served, but to serve. This is at the heart of what it means to be a disciple, and especially what it means to be in a position of authority or leadership in the church. Not to be served, but to serve. I recently read a wonderful book by Willa Cather entitled Death Comes for the Archbishop. It's the story of a French missionary bishop in New Mexico in the 19th century. And there's one episode towards the end of his life where he is really struggling to see the fruit of his labors. He is in a time of spiritual desolation, and in the middle of the night he cannot sleep and is wondering if or how much good he even brought about in his time in the diocese. After some time of not being able to sleep, eventually he gets up and decides to go and pray in the church. And he goes outside, and there in the cold, in the middle of the night, he finds a young woman crouched by the door of the church. She had in fact been living as a servant to a family who had religiously persecuted her from the outset and had never allowed her to practice her Catholic faith. And now finally she got the courage to run away in the middle of the night, despite knowing the consequences if she were to be discovered, because she just needed to be near Jesus. And so the bishop brings her into the church, and there she prays, and she's so moved to be in the church as she kisses the statues with such piety, and she prays with such profound, simple, grateful faith. And the bishop, who the one thing he had done is build a church, build a cathedral, was so struck by this woman that as he is reflecting on the situation, he says, this church is her church. That is, it's not my church, and I am her servant. As he realized that he was there, that church was there, all of his efforts were there for her soul, so that she might encounter her God in the sacramentality and then in the sacraments of the church. And this is a beautiful image of what it means not to be served, to seek recognition for oneself, or even to seek visible, countable, tangible fruits of one's ministry, of one's apostolate, but to give oneself for the redemption of others, to give oneself in service of souls, which is exactly what St. James did. Jesus, you really transformed his heart to stop thinking about gains and what he could get and what position he would have. And though he had an important position, the most important thing about him is that he was a missionary to the ends of the earth, and that he was a martyr, that he spent his life seeking to bring others to you, and that he gave his life for love of you. Jesus, may this be a reminder to us every time that we might be concerned about what we can get out of following you, what blessings we think we deserve, what we think should have or should not have happened to us because we are your disciples. May we remember that to be your disciple means to take up your cross, to share in your chalice, and just like St. James, not to be served, but to serve, and to spend our lives, to give our lives for love of you and for the redemption of souls. I thank you my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.